Yo, in this tutorial, I'll break down 3 of my favorite mask effects right now. They're all incredibly sick and will fit really well on your music videos or just VFX edits in general. So make sure to stick to the end to see the last one because that's my favorite one, and let's get right into it. So for the first one right here, we'll be masking out his hand and we'll be using that as our subject, and then we'll make this kind of fire trail behind him. So to start off, let's make the quality full and then select the ROTO brush tool and mask out his hand. So when it goes up, that's when we'll start masking it out, and we'll just do the hand that moves. Now for your clip, you can do it on basically any scene. You can do it on a full person, you can do it on a body part, you can do it on a hand, you can do it on a phone. It doesn't really matter. The only requirement is that you have a subject that moves, because if whatever you're masking doesn't move, then it will be pretty hard for you to make this effect. So I'm done with my mask now, and as you can see, my mask is far from perfect, but it does not have to be because we'll add on a refined soft matte effect. And let's turn down the additional edge radius to something like 3. And let's bump up the feather like a little bit more to like 8. And as you can see, it basically saved my mask by a lot. And it just adds this layer of feather onto our mask and makes it a little bit smoother. Maybe I should bump up the feather a lot more to over 10. And then 4 for the edge radius. Then we can duplicate our layer and remove every single effect from the background. So now with this hand clip, what I'll do is I'll pre-compose it, and then we can add a pixel motion blur onto the hand layer, and let's bump up the shutter angle to like 2000. You can go even higher if you want to, but I'm pretty sure you're going to crash, or at least I will if I try. And then I'll bump up the shutter samples to 18. This just gives us this kind of motion blur that is really intense when his hand moves. And let's match it with an echo effect. And for the echo effect, let's change the decay to composite in front, and then bump up the number of echoes to like 6. And now as you can see, we have a bunch of versions of his hand. Now we just need to turn down the decay a bit and the starting intensity as well, just to lower their opacity. So basically the one at the back will be the lowest opacity, and then they go up. And as you can tell, it takes a little bit of a second for me to load this, but it's already starting to look great. And then we can match this effect with a tritone. If you want some color shifts in your subject, so your hand, you can go for something like a yellow if you want, or kind of orange if you want that fire look. But basically any color works, and I think I'm gonna go for this kind of orange look. And we can also pair it with a glow. I'll go for the sapphire glow, but if you don't have sapphire, you can just go for the built-in glow in After Effects. I'll drag up the width by a lot, and then drag down the threshold a little bit, and the brightness something like this. So this is before the glow and after. We can maybe drag up the width a little bit more. Next, we can add on a curve effect, and we can put it on top of everything actually. And I'll go for something like this, a pretty strong S curve. Something like that. As you can see, it's already starting to look better. And then to top it off, we'll go for a wave warp. Now the wave warp gives us this kind of wavy look. We can put it on top of all of the effects actually. And then for the height, I'll drag it up a little bit, width as well, drag it up, and we'll get some of that trippy look into this effect. But that's pretty much it. I'll play it through and see what it looks like. But this is basically it. Of course, if you mix this with some plugins, you'll easily spice it up even more. But I try to keep it as plugin free as possible by only using the sapphire glow, which is easily replaceable. But one thing I like to do to spice this up a little bit more is adding something onto the background. Something like a sapphire hotspot, or if you don't have sapphire, the levels effect. Either one of these work. For the levels effect, all you need to do is keyframe the histogram at the start. And then towards the end, you make it a little bit darker by dragging in these, the shadows, and then the highlights as well. Just darken the effect a little bit and put more focus on the hand so the background gets a little bit darker. That's a pretty cool effect, and the hotspot effect is pretty similar, but in my opinion just looks a little bit better. Keyframe the threshold at 0 at the start, and towards the end you just turn it down not too much, something like 0.25. That just puts more focus on the hand. Pretty cool effect, one of my favorite ones like I said. And let's hop right into the next one. So for the next effect, we'll use his hand like we did last time, but this time we'll do it a bit different. So I already got the hand masked out, and what we will do is we'll find a frame where his hand is up, just like right here, and then we will freeze frame it by right clicking, pre-composing it first, and then when we find the frame that we want to freeze frame, we will freeze frame it. So now we got the hand frozen for that frame. So what I'll do with this freeze frame is that I will click Y on my keyboard and grab the anchor point of this hand and put it in the middle of his hand. Now what this will do is when we zoom it, it's going to go right onto the screen basically. So I'll keyframe the scale now, And let's go in like 1 second, something like this, and zoom it in towards the screen. And then before we mess with the graph editor, we'll do the same for the opacity. So keyframe the opacity at the start, then a little bit closer towards half a second, we'll turn down the opacity to 0. So basically his hand will zoom towards the screen. And of course it doesn't look the best right now because we need to mess with the graph editor. So let's select the keyframes, and first for the scale, we'll see what we do. Of course, turn on motion blur, and I'm in the value graph. As you can see, I prefer the value graph because in my opinion it's just a lot smoother, but I'll go for something like this for the value graph. That's maybe a little bit too fast, so I'll drag it down, and that's smooth. I like that. And then for the opacity, I feel like it looks good already, so I'll just do some minor tweaks, maybe drag this one in, drag this one back, so it will zoom in and then fade away. And then you can do that a bunch of times. But if you want some effects on this, of course, feel free to add any. A curve effect will look good with just a tiny S curve, doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then something like a flash before would also look great. So I'll just create a new white solid and cut it like 1 frame before, maybe 2 frames. And then I'll turn down the opacity to like 60 and keyframe it on the frame before. We'll turn it down to, let's do 18. And then I'll cut the solid, leave 1 frame space between, and then we can add on an adjustment layer underneath, and we'll do an exposure effect on that adjustment layer. And for the exposure, I'll drag it up to something like 6 and keyframe it all the way down to 0, like a few frames in, and we'll do something like this for the graph. I think that we can make the flash a little bit better by dragging it out. Here I'll keyframe the opacity from 75 instead, and then all the way down to 0. So it'll go like this. That's good. And now to spice this up, I'll be creating a new adjustment layer, and I'll actually add on an effect from my VFX kit, which is this plugin with over 150 effects that you simply apply with 1 click. So if I go to the transitions tab, as you can see, we have live previews of every single effect. So you don't have to apply an effect, wait for After Effects to render that shit, and then remove it if you're unhappy with it. So this plugin basically cuts down on all that time, and you have every single preview inside the plugin. So here I know that I want a flash effect, and I think that a vertical flash effect will look a little bit better on my scene. So I'll go for the flash with blur 1, apply it with 1 click, and it's immediately applied onto my adjustment layer. Now I'll just line up my keyframes because I want it to hit like right here. So this is what we got. That looks absolutely sick. It's a sick effect in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of this one. But that's the second one, and let's hop right into the third and last one. Now we have this clip right here, and for the third and last one, I'll be rotoscoping out my subject. We don't need a clip that's way too long. This will be more of a transition than an effect. So we can start off by changing the quality to full, and then double click on our layer, rotoscope out our subject once again. This time we'll go for the artist. We're not masking out his hand this time, we'll go for the full subject. So now that I got my subject masked out, it's looking good. All I need to do is add on a refined soft matte like we did to our other masks. We'll keep the additional edge radius around 4, bump up the feather, let's do something like 6. This will do. Now with this clip, I'll duplicate it and drag it back. Like, doesn't have to be longer than a second, so I'll cut it right here. And then what I'll do with this one is I'll right click, go to time, and time reverse layer. So if I play it through now, it should basically be synced up with the clip from before. So if we watch this right now, our subject comes in and then it's synced up. So it's basically a perfect sync between our 2 clips. Now all we need to do is make a smooth entrance for our subject right here. And we can do that in a few different ways. So you can mess with the position by dragging him down, dragging him out of frame to the left or the right. But my personal favorite is by dragging the anchor point up to the top left or the top right corner. I'll go for the top left. And to grab the anchor point, you just select this tool right here, or just click Y on your keyboard. Then I go to the first frame and drag up the scale until he's out of frame, right there. Then I keyframe the scale when he's out of frame, go to the last frame and reset the scale to 100. Now he will basically go from out of frame into the frame and then the next scene. Now we just need to make a smooth entrance by turning on motion blur, easing our keyframes, and make a graph using the value graph. And the graph should look something like this. So pretty fast in the beginning, and then slows down, so it will be as smooth as possible. And as you can see, it's already looking sick. Now we need to do a few minor tweaks just to spice it up and make it look as good as possible. We start off with a camera lens blur at 20, and then we keyframe the blur lens, and when he's starting to get into frame, like right around here, we turn it down to 0. So I'll play it through, and as you can see, he has this blur on him when he comes in, but as he moves further away from the camera, the blur is getting smaller and smaller. Next, we need to get the background in place, and to do that, we can basically just duplicate our subject here. Here at the end, I'll keyframe the scale, and then around the middle, somewhere right here, all I need to do is click this link icon right here. Then I'll move this. Oh wait, first we gotta set the anchor point to the middle again. You can either just move it, or if you want it exactly at the middle, you just hold Control and double click on this icon, and it will automatically move to the middle. And then right here, we'll drag the scale down to 0, so it will basically pop up like this. That's a pretty cool effect. So we'll have the background in place as well as the subject when the new clip starts. So easy is those keyframes. We don't need to tweak the graph editor for those keyframes. But now for the clip right here, we can duplicate this layer, and then for the background layer, we remove every single effect. So this is what we got now. It's a pretty sick effect, and I love to mix this transition with some other effects. We could go for something like, let's see, I'll open up my VFX Kit plugin again and go to the Roto Effects tab. In here we have some crazy rotor effects. Something like a warp splash would look pretty good, so I'll create the new adjustment layer, and let's just add it on and see what it looks like on my clip. I'm pretty sure it will look great, and it really does. So as you can see, it's a sick effect. And if we also pair it with a shake on top, it's going to look nuts. And let's go to the shakes tab. We could go for something like a wiggle or just a subtle vertical shake, because those are pretty smooth. I think I'll try out the wiggle. I'm pretty sure it will look insane on this clip, and as you see, it really does. Let's play it through. It's fucking insane. That turned out great, honestly. I'm a huge fan of that effect. Let's keep it as it is. Let's not mess anything up, because it's looking insane right now. So if you're a VFX editor, feel free to go and grab the VFX kit. I will leave it linked in the description. We actually got a huge update coming out this month of December. So it'll be over 30 new effects inside this plugin. So it'll be over 175 effects. And I'm sure it will save all of you editors countless of hours on your projects. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed. Make sure to grab it, and I'll see you in the next one.